Well, good afternoon. Today is Sunday, October 24th, and this is Life Matters. Let's talk about it. Well, greetings, everybody. I am your host, Michele Irby Johnson, and I want to welcome you to Life Matters. You know, this is where we talk about what matters to you, you. We talk about what happens in our community. And so I want to thank you once again for tuning in to Life Matters with Michele. I want to remind you that if you have questions for our guests, to put them in the chat and I will certainly field them over for her to answer. And with that, I want to welcome to our platform today, Dr. Lisa Banks. Say hello to the people.
Hi, everyone listening today. It's a pleasure to be here. I am grateful for the opportunity for this session today and looking forward to our chat.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to know we have an amazing woman who is on our show on today. And I want to read a little bit of her bio. She has such an extensive bio, but I'm going to hit some hot points so you all will know exactly who we are talking to on today. Dr. Lisa M. Banks is a survivor and strategist who thrives on creating career connections. She is the founder and CEO of Dr. Lisa M. Banks Enterprises, LLC. She's a career coach, an organizational development consulting practice, and is a certified global career development facilitator. Her focus is career paths, doctoral dissertation, and small business development. She is a thought partner and consultant in organizational leadership theories and practical implementation. With more than 30 years of federal government experience, she has had various positions in numerous executive branch departments. And she has led diverse staffs, managed multi-million-dollar budgets. So don't come with her with $5. Talking about, I need your help. No, I'm just kidding. But she has managed multi-million-dollar budgets. She serves as a technical coach for President Obama's Youth Career Connect Federal Grant Initiative. We have a smart one here, you all. She is a dissertation committee member at Capella University as visiting scholar and at Grand Canyon University as a content expert. She has authored 2 books, of which she will speak about later on today. C3, Creating Career Connections. And this is a college to career enrichment guide. And she also has written All Connections Matter. Change your circumstances by changing your connections, which is an A to Z guide to checking your connections as they are stretching your vision or choking your dreams. She holds an MBA and a doctorate of education in organizational leadership with an emphasis on conflict resolution. That's what I do. Yes. Okay. Yes. Dr. Banks is a 2012 Harvard University Fellow and recently completed the Women's Leadership Executive Education Program at Yale School of Business. To learn more about her, you can certainly visit her website at www.lisabanks.org. That's LESIA banks.org. All right. And so we're going to jump right in. I have had the pleasure of knowing Dr. Lisa Banks for a number of years. We used to attend the same ministry, and I've watched her life from afar because, I'm one of those, I don't want to say nosy people, but I get mentored from a distance. And I don't walk up to people and say, hey, will you mentor me? Because rejection is serious. And so I would much rather watch people's lives and glean from them. And Dr. Lisa Banks is certainly one of those women that I have watched down through the years, unbeknownst to her, of course.
Mm.
And I have watched her life. I have watched her grace. She has such a grace on her life. I can't even begin to tell you. But she is discussing today something is very important and something that we not only celebrate in October, but that it is a heavy topic of discussion throughout the year. And
Mhm.
that is of breast cancer. She is a survivor and she's going to be telling her story
Mhm.
today. And I want to also let you all know that she is one of the co-authors in my last book, In Recovery, Rising from the Ruins, where she talks about her story a bit. Because there's no way she can encapsulate it in one chapter, but she talks a bit about her story as a breast cancer survivor. So we're going to let her delve in, dive in, and give us a little insight into her journey as a breast cancer survivor. Once, welcome again, beautiful.
Thank you so much, Michelle. First of all, before I tell a little bit about my story, I want to say thank you. I want to thank you for this opportunity and this platform. And I want to commend you on your efforts, the various anthologies that you have done and are doing. It's a great opportunity for individuals to tell their stories, the various stories that we have the opportunity to tell. And you didn't tell us, I want you to tell this story. You allowed the individuals to select their story. And of course, I chose one of the most impactful things that have happened in my life. Um, my story is called A Walk in the Park. And just to give your listeners a little bit of information, I was diagnosed with breast cancer back in May 2009. So I am a 12-year survivor by the grace of God. Yes, thank you, Jesus.
Amen.
I am
Amen.
a faith-filled person. I believe that my healing was none other than but by the grace of God. I'm not a preacher and I don't have any preaching papers, so that's not what I'm going to do today. But I am going to share basically more so on a layman's terms. I hope my goal today, of course, is to help someone that's either going through breast cancer treatment now or um, has already been through but may still be suffering some challenges, or someone who doesn't even know it that may be diagnosed in the future. So I just want to maybe share some gems, share some information, tell my story, even some of the funny parts of the story, because I think in life you've got to laugh through some things. Otherwise, it's going to be a very difficult challenge. So I always try to find the good in everything, every situation, every bad situation that I've been through. And that's why my chapter was called A Walk in the Park.
Mhm.
I've been through numerous things in my life. I won't delve into all of them, but I dealt with low self-esteem for many years when I was much younger. I've dealt with, unfortunately, sexual molestation, domestic abuse. Actually, that's how I ended up in the DC area, running from a man who was abusing me constantly for several months. So I ran to DC, and thank God I got out of where I was, because this move has been the best move in my life. But I do believe that I went through all of those things as part of getting prepared for breast cancer. I mentioned in my story that the late Daryl Coley has a song, "God is Preparing Me." So I was thinking, or I believe that those things that I went through, God was preparing me for this biggest battle, which to date has been breast cancer. And I pray that that is the biggest battle that I will have to fight. So and I even heard this morning, I listened to TD Jakes, now that my church hasn't returned yet to going to services in person. So I've been listening to TD Jakes since March of last year, since the pandemic started.
Mhm.
Today he had a special guest, Bishop Glenn Staples, and he said it was necessary for me to have gone through what I went through. So for me, it was necessary that I was faced with breast cancer and the challenge of fighting breast cancer.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said that, because many people, and I'm not saying it's in certainly is a walk in the park, because that is far from it. And I
Mhm.
like how you use that, because that's how God helped you through it.
Absolutely.
But um understanding the gravity of it, and understanding, the implications of it. People, when they hear breast cancer, anxiety goes through the roof and all of these various emotions. And so I'm glad that you said that, when, we're glad that we have gone through it. only by the grace of God that has
Yes.
kept us and has healed us and has allowed us. I'm a domestic violence survivor.
Mm-hmm.
I was an abused wife 24 years ago, beaten every day. You name it, I went through it, and so I understand that. And so that for me is my battle, and for you to be transparent and to say that this was your biggest battle, because some people don't see it as such, where you can laugh about it or talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
or stand on the other side of it. You're not
Mm-hmm.
wearing pink just because. You're wearing pink because it is a signature color
Yes.
of your, not just your journey, but your
Mm-hmm.
survival. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you can give us a little bit in terms of your story, when you found out,
Mm-hmm.
and if there's any historical relevance to what you went through, just give us a little backdrop to that, and so we can give the people something to start munching on.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I used to be very, very slim, Michelle, and I started fasting during the Lent season of in 2009. And I know, of course, the purpose of Lent is not to lose weight, but it is a benefit if one of the things you're doing is giving up food. So during the season of Lent, I decided to give up all white products, all meat, and all desserts. And I lost 34 pounds from late February to Easter Sunday.
Mm.
I was able to be blessed to buy one size 8 skirt. It was stretchable, but it was a size 8. But I actually lost 34 pounds. And on Easter Sunday, I'm from the South, Danville, Virginia. So we do certain things in the South. On Easter Sunday, you eat ham, you eat potato salad, and collard greens, and all of that kind of stuff. I don't really know what that has to do with Easter, but you eat it for Easter Sunday dinner.
Right.
So that Easter Sunday, at the end of the fast, I something spoke to me. Something, obviously, it was the Lord that said, "Do not go back to eating that stuff." 1 week later, I was on a business trip. No, I'm sorry. I left church the following Sunday. I used to go to 7 a.m. service, and I did my walk, my 5 miles walk. I was walking 5 miles a day. After the walk, I went out on the deck and I started to rub my chest. I literally thought maybe some soap from the detergent that I'd used was irritating my skin. And I kid you not, I just did like this, and I found a huge lump in my breast. I ran into the house, of course, started stripping to try to see what it was. My skin was not broken. It was not irritated on the surface, so nothing had bitten me. I called the doctor immediately Monday morning. They had me come in maybe a few days later, and they initially thought that it was water because it was moving on the mammogram, and usually, or at least they thought it was moving. So to make a long story short, it wasn't water. The radiologist diagnosed me with having breast cancer. She did a single needle biopsy, which is a procedure that comes after a mammogram. So she diagnosed me, and after that, my process started. And I do want to mention, though, for individuals listening, please, as people always say, know your own body, because I had faithfully had mammograms since the age of 35, even though they're not suggested until 40. I had one since the age of 35. Nothing was ever found. I had just gone to the doctor and had a mammogram. Nothing showed up, but I felt it myself sitting right on top of, basically on the top of my breast. So please be diligent. If you find something, don't say, well, oh, if it's really something, the mammogram would have found it. Because unfortunately, sadly, mammograms do miss. And I've been told that this was probably because of the size of it growing for over 2.5 years, but no one found it until I lost that weight by the grace of God, because it was
Wow.
being hid under the cover of fatty tissue.
Mm, mm. And I'm so glad that you said that, because men and women alike, this is not just a woman's disease. Let's
Mhm.
make it very clear. Men do get breast cancer.
Absolutely.
But the understanding that those self-examinations, how vital they are, because for years I didn't do them. And I will admit, I'm hit or miss even
Mhm.
still,
Of course.
because because of my anatomy, it's so lumpy, I can't tell what's what. I'm
Mhm.
I can tell if something would hurt. So it's very important that we take the time to do those self checks every single month, particularly women. You may have to do it several times a month, because when your hormones change, so does, the density of your breast tissue. And so you have to make sure that you are, being very intentional,
Yes.
if I can say that. And so, Dr. Lisa, you said yours was on the top. You felt it on the top, and that was because you had lost so much weight. Now, for
Absolutely.
those who have naturally have fluffy bosom,
Right.
putting myself out there, I've been wearing a bra since third grade, so I've always had, this fluffy stuff on the front of my body. And so it was always hard for me to determine, because even with my doctors, they're always like, well, the VA, Sergeant Irby, your bosom are very, very, very lumpy and all that different stuff. I said, I know, so I can't tell unless there's something that hurts. And so yours didn't hurt.
Didn't
But
hurt.
you just felt it, and you didn't have one of those. It wasn't warm, because some of the indicators is it's warm, or it's red. And so after you felt this lump, and there was no pain, and there was no warmth, there was no broken skin, when they did the single needle biopsy, what did they say? Did they say it stemmed from a hereditary thing? Or, we have a question here. It says, well, I'll wait until you answer this before I ask you that question, because it might be wrapped up in this. So, what did they say you had? I mean, what level, what kind? Because it's all kinds.
Sure. Mine was estrogen positive, which they were not able to determine initially. It is not hereditary. I actually took a BRCA test, which is a breast cancer gene test. Because I don't know much about my biological father, I was only able to give them information that I had. But of course, I had all the information concerning my biological mother. It has not been in my family. My grandmother had a lump in her breast, but it was not a cancerous lump. So it wasn't hereditary. There are different thought processes as to why these things happen. And now, if you notice, women younger and younger and younger are being diagnosed with breast cancer. I was 43 when I was diagnosed. It could have been taking birth control pills, to be honest, years ago. It could have been what I was eating or what we eat, because there's so many hormones and things in the animals. Yes, and things on food now that we eat. But they don't know what actually, I don't think, causes. They can't pinpoint exactly what causes breast cancer or what caused an individual's breast cancer, such as mine. They can tell you whether or not it was hereditary, and for me, it was not.
Okay, so I know that they have the BRCA screenings.
Yes.
They have the
HER2.
one, HER2, and all of those various things. Do you have enough information that you can provide that information to our viewers and listeners today, or is that something we can just tell them to go and research?
Yeah, I would definitely tell them to go and research that, because that needs to be spoken to in medical terms. And I don't want to give anyone any misinformation, but there's a wealth of information out there. Sometimes it's too much information. Once I was diagnosed, they started giving me books, and then I was just reading too much, and every little thing, like now on the web, if you have a symptom of something, you go and see, and then next thing you know, you're thinking, I got this kind of illness, I got this kind of disease. So it's sometimes, yes, the information can be overwhelming, but I definitely encourage everyone to do their own research, and definitely visit their doctor. And the self-examinations, to piggyback on what you said earlier, it is difficult. Having had breast cancer before, that is one of my greatest challenges now, is doing a self-examination, because, and even though I'm a person of faith, I am a human being, and in the back of my head, sometimes I'm always afraid I might find something. So I made it a practice every time I went to the oncologist to feel my breast when I was with him, so he or her, so they could tell me if I found something, they could say, well, no, this is supposed to feel like this. Maybe a year ago, I felt like what I thought was a huge lump, and it was actually scar tissue. And they had told me every year you have scar tissue, but it didn't register. I was thinking they meant from the radiation, not from the actual scar from where I had the lumpectomy.
Oh, okay,
Mhm.
okay. Wow. And so it's vitally important. And we, um, we take our tatas, if I'm gonna put it
Mhm.
that way, we take them for granted because we
Mhm.
feel that they're always going to be there. My husband and I, we've had these discussions about, because I've lost weight, and he said, "Well, honey, do you want to get a breast reduction?" I said, "No." I said, "It's going to take away my curvature," and because I have an hourglass figure, and I'm like, if I lose them, it's going to take me to a beacon or something like that. And so we joke about that, but we get really passionate about the tatas,
Mhm.
but when it comes down to it, it's life
Or
or
that.
it's your figure, right?
Mhm.
And so when they told you that you had breast cancer, how early did they start with your treatments, and
Mhm.
what type of treatments did you have to succumb to? Not succumb to, that's not the word I want to say.
I
That
understand.
you had to that you had to be treated with. Oh gosh, she didn't succumb. God, she's here. She's here.
I'm
Hallelujah.
here. I'm here. Uh, well, I was diagnosed on May 19th, and it was a lot of back and forth. And I actually had surgery on July 28th. May 18th diagnosed. May 28th, they immediately sent me to the surgeon on July 10th. I had the actual surgery, which is a lumpectomy. Um, and a lumpectomy, and I have no problem being transparent because I am here by the grace of God. So the
Amen.
lumpectomy left me, one breast is about a third of the size of the other breast. And my doctor, and this is when I'll insert some humor, he asked me if I wanted to have, and years later, after you go through the entire process, he said, "Well, Lisa, I would suggest that you get a breast reduction so that both will be the same size." And I told him, "I have no interest in them being the same size. I'm past that point in my life where I think much about the body or the physical body or how I look because I know who I am. I
Yeah.
know what I've accomplished. I know what I bring to the table. And if you have a problem with me having, what you believe is not full or whatever, then that's on the individual or the individuals." I've even had, I went to work one day and my port was showing, and a lady said some negative word to me. I can't even remember what she called, but basically she said it was embarrassing that I would have my port showing. Absolutely. A port is just a tube that they put in your body to take the medication. So it barely left a scar about an inch of, inch long. Who cares? I'm alive. I've had
Right.
individuals say to me once I started the treatment, "Oh, I can show you how to do your eyebrows, or I can give you some fake eyelashes." I want to live. That was not my priority. And to
Right.
be honest, though, I did meet women. They had so much difficulty in losing their hair. One of my colleagues who was actually diagnosed, she refused to take chemo because she didn't want to lose her hair.
Mm.
And to me, that was not very important. I've never had hair dangling down my back anyway. I went to the barber and took control of the situation. I had him cut all of my hair off
I
because I
remember.
wanted to be in charge and in control. So chemotherapy did not take my hair. I cut it myself. And I think those type of things prepare you for what will happen. And they tell you exactly on what day you will lose your hair. I started chemotherapy August 28th on a Friday. They said Tuesday after next, you will lose your hair. I was in the shower and the little bits of pieces of hair that was left began to fall down my neck and the back up and, to the back of my body.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you said that because, and yes, we are humans. We
Mm-hmm.
have faith, but we live in this body. And
Yes.
I'm glad that you said that because the Bible talks about vanity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a pastor, so I'm going to always bring up Bible. So the Bible talks about vanity, and so the fact that you could say, when the doctor asked you if you wanted symmetrical breasts, you're like, I don't care about that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
here.
I'm
The fact that you didn't care about your hair falling out, you just went and I remember when you were bald. I said, "Oh my God, she's beautiful." This before I
thank
lost my hair. See, I
you.
lost my hair to alopecia, but people walk up to me out in the store and airports and stuff. "I'm praying for you." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." Because they automatically think I have, breast
Exactly.
cancer. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and so I remember seeing you, when your hair was bald. I remember seeing you with head wraps. I remember seeing you when you took a picture and it was on Facebook or somewhere I saw it.
Mhm.
I was like, oh my God, Dr. Lisa is beautiful bald,
Mhm.
you know. And but I said all that to say is that people get so caught up in how they look that they
Yes.
really forget the blessing
Mhm.
of surviving.
Yes.
Uh,
Mhm.
you're still here. You can always buy hair,
Like a lot of people do.
and they don't have chemo.
Exactly.
They spending $400 on bundles, and
Yes.
and $50 on eyelashes that look like feathers. You know, and I'm not knocking you. If that's what you
Right.
want, that's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the fact that you said you didn't want false eyelashes, you didn't want anybody to show you how to put eyebrows on,
Mhm.
you didn't want the fact that you remain true to who you are because you recognize the gift of life. and
Absolutely.
and I think that is amazing for people to understand. And that's kind of, almost like the direction of my book, My Bald is Beautiful, that
Mhm.
we're not our hair. That's the title.
Absolutely.
That's the title of it. My bald is beautiful. I am not my
Mhm.
hair. And people always feel, and we've been told as young little girls that, your hair is important. The Bible talks about
Mhm.
your hair being your glory and all of those different
Mhm.
things. But
Mhm.
I'm just glad that you stood in your authentic self and
Mhm.
said, you know what? It's just hair. I'm going to cut it off.
Mhm.
Whenever it comes back, it comes back. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Mhm.
But the fact that you stood in that and you didn't allow your fear of what the chemo was going to do to basically deter you from being who you were as Lisa
Mhm.
Banks,
Exactly.
right? Doctor
Right.
excluded, but Lisa Banks
Right.
is who
Mhm.
you are, right?
Exactly. And I also refuse to um, not allow what people said about chemo. You would be amazed when I started going through treatment. People said chemo is poison. Even the nurse, the first drug that you have to take, depending on the type of breast cancer you have, because there various types, it is a red tube of medication and it is blood red. So when the nurse started to give me the medication, she said, "This is the devil's blood," and that was not a
What
good moment. That was not a good moment. So I
did you
said,
did you
no.
say something to her?
Oh, I said, this is the blood of Jesus, if anything, okay? This is not the devil's blood. And I said, nothing that God has made is unclean. I learned that I was on a trip right before I started chemo, and we were doing this hike, and we came upon a tree, and the person that was guiding the hike said that he took a group of people out one day, and a lady started hugging the tree, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And she said, "This tree saved my life." And he said, "What do you mean?" She said, "This is the tree that is used to make one of the chemotherapy drugs that saved my life." So when he told me that, in that moment, I said, nothing that God has made is unclean. I'm going to take this chemotherapy because I'm not going to sit here and not be honest. I was afraid to take chemotherapy because you don't know what's going to happen. You do
Yeah.
not know how your body is going to receive it. By the grace of God, my body did very well. I was never sick. I never threw up once. I walked 5 to 10 miles every single day while I was on chemotherapy. So I tolerated chemotherapy very well. But a young lady I met the first day I had chemo, she stayed in the hospital quite a bit because her body did not tolerate it as well. But I suggest or would recommend to individuals, you have got to make your own decisions. You cannot do or not do chemo because Lisa did or Lisa didn't or someone else. One of the things that bothered me so much a few years ago, I heard someone preaching and she had been diagnosed with cancer and she was saying, I have faith, so I didn't take chemotherapy, and the people that are taking chemotherapy have no faith. And I said, that's an absolute lie.
Yeah.
Obviously this was the Lord's will for me. Maybe you were healed without chemotherapy, maybe your cancer disappeared, but sometimes you have to go through things in life, and I truly believe this is all a part of God's bigger plan for me to have had to go to chemotherapy. I went through chemotherapy, radiation, um, biotherapy, tamoxifen. It took 8 years, and when you initially get the diagnosis, you're thinking, okay, sometimes very harsh thoughts come to mind. Other times when they say your treatment plan is about a year, you're thinking it's going to be over, but it's not a year. One drug I literally had to take for 8 years. But in April 2017, I heard the doctor say, you are cured of breast cancer. So it
Amen.
was worth that 8 years of taking that medication.
Amen. You said a couple key things. You said that because one of the questions that I was going to ask you, you just answered. It was asking what were some of your side effects, but you said you didn't have any. And my question, and that you may not be able to answer, or maybe my statement is perhaps because you were active and
Mm-hmm.
you were exercising,
Mm-hmm.
that your body had a different way of absorbing the medication differently than somebody who was still sitting around eating fried chicken and
Exactly.
eating, the sweet
Mm-hmm.
potatoes and eating the cooks and cakes and pies. Oh my,
Mm-hmm.
because your immune system acts differently when you're inactive than when you are not. And so
Absolutely.
I
Mm-hmm.
walk 8.5 miles a day now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Monday through Friday, because I give myself a break on Saturday and Sunday. Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a funnel cake yesterday. Amen. Anyway, so but I think it's key that we
Mm-hmm.
understand that if we're inactive, it almost gives the cancer or the disease, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is,
Mm-hmm.
um, permission,
Mm-hmm.
if you
Mm-hmm.
will, to wreak havoc because you've not built up anything in your body to fight it off.
Absolutely.
Exercise is one of those free
Mm-hmm.
treatments.
Mm-hmm.
Am I
I
right?
agree. I
That
agree. Mm-hmm.
that helps to strengthen your immune system, your
Mm-hmm.
body, your cardiovascular system,
Mm-hmm.
all of the various systems that have to work in concert
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that the medications are doing what they need to do, going where they need to go. And so I honestly believe, outside of the grace of God, because His grace is applied to even the exercise, the
Yes.
fact that you had the wherewithal to keep walking,
Mm-hmm.
I think that exercise is paramount in the healing process because
Yes.
if you don't do it and you just want to lay back and let them shoot you up 2 or 3 times a week and take pills every day,
Mm-hmm.
then your body really is not being trained to fight.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's odd that you would say that because the doctor told me the exact same thing
Really.
before I even started the treatment. She basically said, you're perfectly healthy, other than the fact that you have breast cancer, because I was at the right weight with my height and, size and body mass and everything, because I had fasted and lost all of that weight. I didn't have high blood pressure. I had never had any problems with high blood pressure, diabetes, or any of those things. And she said, you're perfectly healthy other than having breast cancer. So when I started treatment, the very first chemotherapy session, people will try to get in your head. I've had people sit right there in the room with me and said, you're going to be sick, you're going to be this and that. I left that place and celebrated. I went to Home Goods, of course, and did some shopping. And I went out to eat.
Shop
I did that,
therapy.
yes, after every chemo session. And then the next morning, I would get up and do my regular walk. And now the first chemo session, it was very difficult to walk the next day. I made it up to the top of my street, which wasn't even a quarter of a mile. And I said, I can't do this. But guess what? I put one foot in front of another. Next thing you know, 5 miles later, I was finished. And I refused to not do that because I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to continue to work out. And even when the doctor told me I was cured of breast cancer and I didn't have to take the drug anymore, a few years after that, he even said, now my chance of getting breast cancer is the same as everyone else because I was walking and doing exercises. Walking decreases, studies have proven this, that walking decreases the likelihood of breast cancer returning when you
Amen.
use walking
Amen.
as exercise. And I encourage your listeners to definitely research that, especially people that are breast cancer survivors or going through treatment now, or just want to be healthier, period. As a matter of fact, when we get off the phone, I'm going to be out doing my daily walk also.
Yeah, and like I said, it's free. Walking doesn't cost you anything except a
Anything.
good pair of sneakers
Mm-hmm.
and a good phone with some good Wi-Fi so you can have some music in your ear or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that people can be so negative from the kick, from the onset, this is going to be this is going to be that. And if we allow people to speak negativity in our spirit and then
Yes.
we receive it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's all that the enemy wants us to do. And I know this is not church, but this is just who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
just the same way that we speak to against something else, we can speak against people. It's like, the weapon may form, but it's not going to prosper. But
Exactly.
you don't get to speak over my life something that's contrary to what God has already spoken. He said I should live and
Absolutely.
not die. So who are
Absolutely.
you to say otherwise?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so one of the questions from our guest that says, to your knowledge, do you know if there are any long-term or short-term effects of having had that treatment? Are you a long hauler, if you will, from having had chemo, or is there anything else that's adverse that you've been noticing since you've stopped
Mhm.
taking the medication?
Absolutely. They tell you in advance some of the things that will happen. Your cognitive memory is lessened. I actually have to write down everything. Even now that we've been in this discussion, I have my pen here and I keep it notes so I can make sure that I answer the questions that you pose. Or if you present a 3-part question, I'm going to forget part 3 before I even start talking. So I've learned ways to deal with it. Also, I had neuropathy. That's people that have diabetes have that a lot. You have no feeling in your feet or hands. But after the first several years, that began to dissipate. So I don't have that problem anymore. Maybe every now and then, maybe once every 6 months, I'll have that feeling. But otherwise, I don't have any other long-term effects from chemotherapy. With radiation, my skin was literally black as pavement from here all the way down across my body, the square area that covered the section. So it's not just the breast that is burned, but the entire area of the body. So it was literally jet black, but now it's back to the normal color. And by the grace of God, thank God for melanin.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was constantly, yes, I was constantly teased and picked with because I was dark skinned. You know, dark skin wasn't in style when I was a kid, okay? But this dark skin saved me. I met other ladies in radiation and they had breakdown. And that's when the radiation burns the skin. And it's almost like when you're a kid and you fall and scar your knee, you see those little dots of red. That's how radiation looks. But for me, nothing happened. My skin just turned very black, but now it is light. I went to see my radiologist one day and he looked at me, he looked at my breast and he said, "Oh my God, they're beautiful." And I said, "Where did you get your degree from? What are you talking about? Beautiful. This is a mess." But he said, "No, this is beautiful because I didn't have any breakdown." He's looking at it from a medical perspective. I did not have any breakdown on my skin. My skin was dark. It wasn't bruised. It wasn't burning. Now, I do have burning sensations every now and then now. And I also have a sensation that someone is cutting me sometimes. And I've been told it's kind of like phantom, like if you lose a limb.
Phantom symptoms.
Exactly, exactly. But other than that, I don't really have any long-term side effects of the drug. And those are the side effects that they tell you will have.
And the blessing of it is, I would much rather have some phantom symptoms
Mhm.
or an occasional cognitive situation, but I have that anyway. Praise Jesus. Because I've been writing notes and I keep notes everywhere. I have these little half
Me
pieces of
too.
paper where I'm constantly writing. I said, okay, if
Mhm.
I don't write this down, I'm going to forget it. But I'm over 50. I'm almost 60. So I'm like, you know what?
Mhm.
I keep forgetting. I said, what was I doing? I'm
Me
talking to my husband. I'd be like, I said, what was I saying? He's like, I don't know. I said, okay, it'll come back.
right.
But the blessing in saying that those are some of your long-term, challenges, if you will. The fact that you're still here is the blessing. And
Mhm.
so, you know, oftentimes we think about some of the things, you have a baby, you're like, oh my God, I don't want to have to deal with, I don't have to deal with this or deal with that. But I'm like, you have a beautiful child. So what? You have a
Mhm.
scar going across your belly,
Mhm.
or you have whatever the case may be. And so I think it's important that survivors and people who are in your situation or maybe
Mhm.
just getting ready to walk into that situation, that they understand that appreciating the day,
Yes.
appreciating
Mhm.
who you are, where you are, what's going on, the
Mhm.
blessing of getting up, putting one foot in front of the other every
Mhm.
day is a blessing. Uh, there are some things that I wanted to ask you. There was a question somebody asked me, see if I can find it. It said something about clinical trials. Did they try to
Mhm.
offer you clinical trials?
Mhm.
And how did you
Mhm.
feel about that?
they were considering me for a new treatment, and that would be radiation. What the consideration was is to go back in after I'd healed from the lumpectomy and put a little, I guess, instrument inside of my body, and then the radiation would emit by itself without me having to go to the center. But after my surgery, it was deemed that I was not qualified because the lump, I don't call it my lump, it just invaded my body. The lump was too big. So I had to actually do the physical radiation where I went every day. And I went to 56 sessions. You go to radiation absolutely every single day except for weekends. I would leave my job, go to Washington Hospital Center, take my clothes off. There's a little thing you use, like a little credit card. You undress from the top. You go through this door. They had already fitted me for this mechanism for my body. I would lay on the table. The radiation chamber would come over, get up off the table, put my clothes on, and go back to work. And I did that for 56 sessions.
That's a blessing. That's a blessing. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I have to pause and tell people who we're talking to. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to none other than the beautiful Dr. Lisa Banks, and she is talking about her journey with breast cancer. We don't want to call it, her challenge, her thorn or whatever, because she is on the other side of it, and she's thriving, not just surviving, and she is living to tell her story about what God has delivered her from, what he has healed her from. And so when I think I recall reading something in your story when somebody said something else at work or something with your head wrap. I know people said all kinds of bothersome stuff to you, but didn't someone mention something about your head wrap? I vaguely remember that.
It was actually my boss told me that I looked sick.
That's what it was.
Yes, God rest her soul. She was very, very negative to me. She would always say things. There was another lady who had just fought breast cancer several years before I got there. Unfortunately, the breast cancer came back, and she's like, doesn't this person look sick? And she would always tell me I look sick. But when people do things like that to me, it only motivates me to be better and to do better. So when she said I look sick, I would just come to work with even more makeup on, with higher heels, shorter skirts, and just I would prance on around the office. So I refuse to let people put that stuff in my ear. And I haven't always been this strong. Like I said, I had very low self-esteem early in my life. Whatever you told me about me, I believed it. I was very sad about it, but I don't do things like that anymore. I don't let people's opinion dictate what I do. Also, Michele, to piggyback or to answer a little more about the question the person had about clinical trials,
yes,
I would encourage people, if you're given the opportunity to be in a clinical trial, and if you feel that's something you should do, I would encourage you to do it, because to be absolutely honest, without the grace of God and clinical trials from other people, I would not be here today. I also tell in my story that the doctor told me 20 years prior to my diagnosis, my prognosis would have been grim, but they had since created a drug in the Herceptin that treated the type of breast cancer that I had. But had it not been for people going through these clinical trials to see if the drug would work, then the drug would have never been approved for my use, and the use of and for others' use, of course. So I would encourage people to do their research. Of course, I'm not telling anyone to go do a clinical trial or participate. But if you believe that's the right thing for you and your doctors believe it's the right thing, I do hope that you would consider it. Also, one other thing you mentioned, Michele, about people saying negative things to you. Just to give another plug for my book, All Connections Matter, that's exactly what this book is about building your circle of influence. And it's not just from a business perspective, but it's life. And you should have a very limited amount of people in your circle, not more than 5 people, because when you have too many people, you have too many opinions and too many people getting in your head. And you need people, in my opinion, in your circle, like people that have been through perhaps what you're going through, that have reached goals that you want to reach. If you're the smartest, brightest person, most accomplished in your circle, then, I mean, what significance is that to you? You can't be the smartest person in the group always. You always need to be in a group where people can help you and where you can glean from those people. And sometimes the people in your circle, you need to ask is a good word, ask or kindly, gently remove family members out of your circle of influence, because sometimes it's the family that has the most negative impact on what you're going through or what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to buy a house, well, we don't buy houses. We've never had that. We live in apartments. Not to say there's anything wrong with an apartment, but don't let people get in your head, even family members. There's some family members I did not tell that I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it's because I didn't want to hear the negativity.
Right.
Generally, when people hear you have breast cancer, I don't know why, but the first response individuals say is, so and so died, this person died. Why are you telling me who died? That's always the first response that I get from people. So I don't want to be or didn't want to be around anyone talking about death or who died, because that's not where my head is going. I had never thought during my entire fight, from the moment I was diagnosed, death was never even considered for me, never even an option. I said, now I know we're not going to live this life forever, but breast cancer will not take me.
I know that's right.
I refuse to be defeated. And that's my mantra in life on, several levels. I refuse to be defeated, and not from an arrogant standpoint, but you have got to stand on your ground. You've got to have something where you can stand on, some belief that you can hold on. It doesn't have to be the same belief as my belief, but you have to have something.
Absolutely. And you said something very key that I actually said in my sermon this morning. My sermon was called Purge to Produce. And sometimes you have to purge people.
Yes.
And I said the exact same thing, that if you're the smartest person in the group, then you need to change your group, because now you need somebody that's going to help sponsor you to the next level.
Absolutely.
And you can't do that if you're the smartest one in your circle. So it's absolutely correct. If you're still around the people who've been in the same 5-block radius all their life, then you're not going to grow. You're going to be just as stagnant as they are. And they're like, oh, you're trying to leave the neighborhood. No, I'm trying to leave this so I can get better and greater. It's not all about being richer or whatever, but sometimes
absolutely,
it's a mindset.
Yes.
It's being able to create generational wealth for your family, whether that's buying a house, whether that's having some stock, whether it's being around people who are doing things you don't know how to do, but can help you do it on your level. So it's very important. So you talked a lot about, because I was getting ready to ask you about support systems, because everybody is not going to be happy for you. Everybody is not going to be like, tee hee hee, ha ha ha, we love you, we love you, we love you. And it's sad but true that there are times when family is not the first place that you go. And we love our family, but because, and I say this even in your walk with the Lord, you can't tell them where God is taking you, because all they remember is what you did in 10th grade.
Right.
Or they remember how you acted in college, or they remember when you used to curse and drink and smoke, oh my. And so they don't see the redemption. They don't see the transformation, even though it's clearly there. Their blinders say, oh, Lisa still does this. Oh, Michele still does that. How can she be a pastor? She was the biggest drunk. Yes, I was, but I'm not anymore. So release it and let it go.
Amen.
But the point of the matter is that support system, when you said no more than 5 people, can you give us a little bit more context to that? Because some people feel like they have to be surrounded by a host of people in order for them to feel loved and supported and all of these various things. And I'm not talking about group therapy and all of that, because that's a different thing. But when we're talking about support systems,
right,
what does that look like when you said no more than 5?
Right. Definitely. There's actually a process in this book where I have where it's outlined on how you can pick the 5 people that need to be in your circle. Absolutely. And you pick people that will speak positive things into you, but at the same time, people that will tell you the truth. Yeah. Like sometimes you'll notice someone that's wearing something totally inappropriate. And I'll just say a movie star just for the sake of it. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people saw what Lizzo wore somewhere. I saw it all up and down social media. She had on this see-through net thing. You would think someone in her circle would say, this is inappropriate. Not necessarily because you're big. You could be little. It's just inappropriate, period. But you've got to have people in your circle that can tell you that, and you can receive it and listen. and not walk away and say, well, I don't want this person in my circle anymore. If all you have are people in your circle that's going to tell you how great you are, how fabulous you are,
And
then
agree with you.
that's not going to help you move ahead. I use a story in here of somebody that used to be on my staff years ago. She was trying to get into a program, and I had graduated from the program, so I was giving her guidance and direction. Then she decided to ask someone else in the office. Then she asked another person, and then another person. And then she got all confused. And I said to her, and I'll just say, Michele, has any of these people graduated from this program? No. Have they even entered the program? No. Have they been approved to go into the program? Well, no. Well, why are you listening to them? You need to listen to someone who's been there
Yeah.
and done that so they can help you get to where you need to be. And it's not all about, like you said, education, finances, or anything like that. Whatever your goal is, it may have nothing to do with education, it may have nothing to do with career development, but you still need people that can speak to you honestly, and you have got to be willing to have those people in your circle. So it's an entire plan in this book of how you can go through. It's my understanding that sometimes women groups have, ladies have taken this book and made a game out of it where you sit and talk about people, not in a negative way by calling names, but the people that are in your circle right now, and the people, the type of people that should be in your circle, even if you don't have a name for that person. And just like you said, I didn't know that I was mentoring you from a distance. And I've done that with individuals before. So look at someone that you see in a likeness that you hope to be in or have accomplished what you want to accomplish. And even if you ask those individuals to be your mentor and they say no, he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna follow them anyway.
I
And
can
you can
still watch you.
exactly. I used to say that about Hillary Clinton because I worked at the State Department. I said, she doesn't know me from anyone, but I'm watching her. I watch how she presents in meetings. I watch how she presents herself as an individual, her professionalism, because she's reached incredible heights, of course. And if you want to go even half of the places that Hillary Clinton has gone, these are some of the things that perhaps you need to do or at least consider.
Absolutely, absolutely. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to none other than Dr. Lisa Banks, and we are discussing breast cancer. We're discussing her successful journey to the other side of healing. And if you want to reach out to her, you can certainly visit her website at www.lisabanks.org. That's Dr. DrLesiaBanks.org. We want to make sure they don't say LISA because they're
Yes.
not going to find you. So that's www.drlesiabanks.org. And like she was just speaking about her books, she has a couple of books that you can certainly get on Amazon for $20, or you can get them from her website, as I just indicated. And that is C3, Creating Career Connections, and the book called All Connections Matter. And so Dr. Lisa, she has been such a blessing. And like I just said, I've been watching her life for years, hers and a couple of other people who she's connected to. And I just watch how she just moves through life. I have watched you again with the grace, even knowing that you were diagnosed and all of that. I still watched your life and your response to it. You didn't react to it. You responded to life in the way that you did. It's still something that we can still glean from and say, you know what? She did it with such grace and finesse that you would have never known. Even if you were sick, we would have never known because you handled it with such grace and finesse. And so, again, Dr. Lisa Banks is here with us, and she is discussing her journey to the other side of breast cancer. And she has two books again, C3, Creating Career Connections, and also All Connections Matter. You can purchase that on Amazon or at her website at www.drlesiabanks.org, both for $20. You can certainly get your copy today. And I want to put a plug in for myself. I have another anthology that's coming out. You can pre-order your copy of Boots and Beyond. These are stories of triumph, tragedy, transition, and trials. We have military folk in here who have written their stories about what they dealt with in the military. I'm a veteran. I served for 26 years combined service. And so I have a story in there as well. And I also have another one that's on pre-order now, which is My Bald is Beautiful, I Am Not My Hair. So you can get either one of those by visiting my website at www.IamMij.com, or you can send me an email. There's that cognitive thing. You can send me an email at Michele at IAM-MIJ.com. That's MICHELE at IAM-MIJ.com. Also, you can watch this show on YouTube at what's the name of it? Life Matters with Michele TV Official. That is YouTube, Life Matters with Michele TV Official, or you can certainly listen to it online at www.sensationalsoundsradio.net every Friday at 4 o'clock p.m. All right. Oh, and to be a guest on the show, we'll be starting season 4 in January 2022. And I'm looking for guests. I'm still toggling with if I'm going to do it every week like I've been doing for these last 3 seasons, or if I want to do it twice a month or once a month. But either way, if you want to be a guest, send me an email or go to my website, which is iam-mij.com/contact us. All right, beautiful Lisa, we are winding up. If you can have any final words for our listeners, whether they're survivors, whether they're in the midst of it, whether they're loved ones, if you can just give us a close out in advice.
Well, I want to close by again saying thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to address your audience. I hope at a minimum I have been helpful, if only to one person today. I also want to again encourage women and men alike, like you said, to be diligent about their own health and health care. And if there's any inkling that something could be going on, or any sign that you may be having concerning breast cancer, please do not be afraid. Go to the doctor. It very well may not even be. Most lumps are not cancerous, and most women have lumps in their breast. So don't let fear of not knowing cause you to go down a situation that you shouldn't be in. So take time to be diligent about your health. And again, thank you, Michele, for this opportunity. I am truly grateful, and I've had a great time today.
Well, I'm so grateful to have you on here. We're going to have to find another subject and bring you back next year.
Oh, thank you.
And you don't have to do the pink thing anymore.
Right.
But yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking to the wonderful, I call her wonderful because like I said, she's been a silent mentor of mine for many years, Dr. Lisa Banks, and she has graced our stage. She has come to the virtual platform, if you will, to share her story about breast cancer and the victory over it. She stomped on its head and she is living to tell the truth and to tell the story. Thank you once again, beautiful sister, for joining me. And for all of you who have tuned in, once again, you can watch the replay on YouTube at Life Matters with Michele TV Official, or you can certainly catch any of my shows on sensationalsoundsradio.net every Friday at 4 o'clock p.m. Thank you once again for tuning in. And this is the platform where we talk about what matters to you, you, and you. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you again next week. God bless.